Now, before we get started with it, does anybody in here know what an incentive is? What happens if someone gives you an incentive? What do you think that means? If your parents look at you and say, Jace, you make an A in personal finance, we'll give you $50. Your incentive to make an A is what? You get $50, right? So you're like, okay, that sounds like a pretty good deal. I'll try to do that, right? So an incentive is anything that incites or motivates you to do something else. Does that make sense? So, do you think businesses use incentives to try to get people to buy more of a product? Yeah, you see it all the time. Depending on where you like to shop, whether it be online or in person at a store, anytime you go into a store, they've always got like a clearance rack or a 20% off rack or a buy one, get one free, right? The idea behind that is for you to feel like you are getting a deal and to spend more money. Okay? So, we're going to talk about how that works, and then the second part of this, we're going to talk about consumer sovereignty. You guys know what a consumer is. It's someone who buys a product, right? Or is willing and able to buy something. That's a consumer. Sovereignty, we haven't talked a lot about. But sovereignty, from a government standpoint, is who has the power. And I think I've already mentioned to you guys that in our type of economy, who controls things? Who controls what's being made? Us. Yeah, the people that are buying stuff, right? Because if a business is making something that's not selling, if they're intelligent, they're going to quit making it, right? They're going to make what's being bought. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. And hopefully, we can make it make sense. There's not a lot to this. There's only about 5 slides. So, a couple of questions we're going to have to answer. The first one is, what is an incentive? So let's just write down what is an incentive, and then we're going to answer that question. So that is our first concept. What is an incentive? Okay? So, you can actually have 2 types of incentives that we're going to refer to, a positive and a negative one. Okay? It says that a positive incentive is a reward or other enticement that encourages a behavior. So, first one we're going to put down, write down the word positive. And a positive incentive is a reward. And again, guys, you can write these ever how you want to. It's a reward or enticement. Okay? That encourages behavior. And the examples that it gives you is like a prize or wages. Some of you guys used to play sports. Some of you play sports. You played those sports to do what? You wanted to win, right? And if you won, you got certain rewards for that, correct? Same thing in a business. If you work hard, people will give you more money. And once you get really good at a certain type of trade, correct? That's your incentive to get good at it, whether it be a mechanic, a welder, whatever, right? So those are all positive incentives. I'll make more if I get good at this. I'll win this if I practice really hard. Those are all positive, okay? There's also negative incentives, okay? So jot down the word negative. Okay? It says a negative incentive is a penalty that discourages a behavior. And the examples that I give you there is like a library fine or a parking ticket. If you speed down the road and you get a ticket, your incentive not to speed is to what? You get a ticket, right? So that's a negative incentive. So that's a penalty. That discourages behavior. A penalty that discourages behavior. An example. being a parking ticket. Can you guys think of any other negative incentives? You show up late from curfew, what happens?
Get your car taken.
You get your car taken, you get grounded, right? That's a negative incentive. I better get my butt home, right? So again, there are positive and negative incentives. Now, businesses, which one of these do you think they use? You think they use positive or negative incentives to try to get you to buy more things? Obviously they use positive, right? They're trying to make you feel like you're getting a deal. That way you spend more money, okay? So, our second question that we got to answer says, how do incentives influence behavior, okay? So, how do they influence behavior? And it says, how do consumers, producers, workers, savers, investors, and citizens respond to incentives? All those can be the same people. A consumer can be a saver, can be an investor, and obviously they're a citizen, right? They can also be a worker. Producers are all those things as well. So, how do these type of people respond to incentives? Okay? I need to make that a little bit bigger for you guys so we can see that. All right. So how do consumers and producers and all those things I just said respond to incentives? So basically, guys, how is it that we would respond to an incentive, okay? So the first one, and this is all positive, put down that a value or a lower price is an incentive. Value or lower price. And I'll explain these after we write them out. A lower price is an incentive. Actually, I'm not even going to write incentive. I'm just going to put value and or a lower price, and in parentheses I'm going to write the word consumer. So let's give you an example of this, okay? Let's say all you guys, everybody likes Nike, right? So let's talk about Nike. If you ever go into a Nike store and you see a rack of clothes that says buy one, get one free, okay? And one of those shirts that's on that rack is $30. That's what you pay for t-shirts anymore, right? About $30, $20. Let's just say 30 for example purposes. All right, so you see this shirt and you really want this shirt, okay? And it says buy one, get one free. So in your brain, you're probably thinking, okay, Nike's got this shirt at $30, but if they're going to give me one free, I'm actually only paying $15 for it because I'm getting the other one free. Does that make sense? So instead of 30 for one, they want you to look at it as 15 for two. Does that make sense? Chase, you're looking at me like you're puzzled. You with me?
I am.
If you buy one, get one free, and the one you're buying is $30, and this one's free.
Yeah, how does it go down to 15?
Because if you do the math, you're getting two of them. So divide 30 by 2, right? So essentially you're getting, I mean, realistically it's still $30, but in your brain you think, well, I'm just getting $15 for these, right? Now, you all know as well as I do you think Nike has that much money put into making their t-shirts? Probably not. They get them done somewhere where they're paying somebody an hourly wage to knock these t-shirts out like crazy, right? So at the end of the day, Nike may only have $5 in each t-shirt, but they're selling them for $30. That's a really good profit margin, right? So even though they're giving you one free, and you think you're getting it for $15, is Nike still making money? Yeah, but in our head, that's a lower price, it's a better value, so that's what we like, okay? So from a consumer standpoint, we like the lower prices. Is everybody with me? All right, the second one up there. How do producers respond to incentives? Very simple. Put down profit. Producers are going to sell things in the hopes of making money, right? So if they offer you an incentive to buy something, do you think they're losing money? No, nobody's losing money. So profit is an incentive for producers. Okay? So now we got how consumers and producers respond to incentives. Let's talk about workers a minute. One of these days you guys are going to have a job, right? Some of you may already have a job. The reason people get jobs is to make what? Money. And to make money and to get certain things like health care insurance or certain benefits from their company that the company helps pay for, right? So, in number 3, as far as an incentive for workers, put down pay. And benefits. Pay and benefits. That's why I'm here today, right? They're paying me to teach you guys personal finance, and they give me benefits to be here. Now, granted, I like being around, got to teach kids, and I like being able to teach kids, and that's all well and good, but it would be hard to show up for a job for anybody if they weren't getting paid, right? Or if there was no benefits to it. So workers take jobs to make benefits and to create pay, to get money, okay? All right, the next couple may confuse you a little bit, but hopefully we can make it understandable. This one's talking about savers. Now, a saver, guys, is someone who literally saves money. Say you make $500 a week and you take $100 of that and you put it into a savings account. Over time, that money's really going to add up, right? So the idea is to not touch it, to leave it where it's at, and that way it'll keep growing. It'll gain interest. Y'all with me on that? So, a saver wants to put their money in a savings account that has high or low interest on it. What do y'all think? If I'm saving money, do I want the bank to pay me high or low interest on it? High interest, because if it's high, that's more money I'm making, right? Now, don't get this confused. Let's say that I'm having to pay a bill, and there's an interest on that bill. Do I want the interest to be high or do I want it to be low?
Low.
I want it to be low. But if it comes to my money and people paying me interest, I want that to be high. You guys understand that? So, from a saver standpoint, put down where it says interest earned. Interest earned. That's an incentive for a saver. They want as much money as they possibly can get out of that, okay? Those 4 make sense thus far? You guys with me? Okay. The next one we have up there, I think, is an investor, okay? Now, the way this is worded, I'm going to make it a little bit simpler. It says capital gain is an incentive for investors, and I'll give you an example. It says if you buy at $10 and sell at $15, do you make any money? Yeah. So that's like your marginal gain, your marginal cost, and your marginal benefit. If I buy at 10, my marginal cost is $10, right? But if I sell at 15, my marginal benefit would be $15. So did I make a profit? Yeah, so I would want to keep doing that, correct? So beside of investor, put down that the incentive to invest is capital gain. And what I mean by capital is money, okay? But you can write down capital gain. We're going to talk a lot about investors and things of that nature later on in this class. I'm going to go ahead and write down the example of this as well, okay? Put down that an example would be to buy at 10 at $10 and sell at $15. That would mean you're making money, and that would be a positive, okay? And then the last one here that we're going to jot down is citizens. And that, guys, we've talked about citizens all the way through this, haven't we? Aren't citizens consumers, producers, workers, savers, and investors? So that can apply to anybody, correct? But they take this to a political standpoint. It says a citizen has an incentive to vote for politicians who share their views. We're about to have an election in November, right? Now, I know you guys aren't old enough to vote yet. But when you get old enough to vote, it's very important that you do so, because if you don't go vote, do you have any reason to complain about how the government's doing things? No. I hear people all the time, well, so-and-so done this, and this guy's dumb, and what this guy's trying to do. Well, did you go vote? I ain't voting for none of them. Then don't complain. I don't want to hear you. You didn't want to have a say-so when you started, so don't have a say-so now. You guys understand that? So it's very important to vote. So as far as a citizen goes, you have the incentive to vote. And we'll just jot down vote for the sixth one there, okay? Have your opinion heard. Because if you don't have your opinion heard, nobody else is going to ask for it more than likely, will they? Okay? So that answers that question as far as how do consumers, producers, workers, savers, investors, and citizens respond to incentives. Now, all these incentives that we just wrote down, are they positive or negative for those people?
Positive.
All those are positive. Now, obviously, the negative ones, there's going to be negative ones too, and we talked a little bit about that. But people go looking for the positive incentive they have. Okay? So far, so good. Does anybody have any questions about this? All right. The next part of this, that's an incentive. We good with an incentive? Can you guys reiterate to me what an incentive is? Something that makes you change your behavior in a positive or negative manner. Y'all got it? The next word we got to deal with up here, it says, what is consumer sovereignty? Okay? So, let's write that question down in our notes. What is consumer sovereignty? Oops. Now again, we know what a consumer is. A consumer is someone who is willing and able to buy a product at a certain price, right? Sovereignty is who has the power, and we've talked a little bit about this. Consumers set the price in our economy because we dictate what's being bought and sold, right? So, what is consumer sovereignty? The easiest way to put this, the answer to what is consumer sovereignty, is if you look at that first statement right there. It says consumer sovereignty is the concept that consumers do what? Rule. So write down consumers rule. We make a lot of the decisions. What's being produced because of what we buy. Okay? It says in order to succeed, businesses must produce goods and services that consumers are willing and able to buy. So let's shorten that a little bit, okay? Let's put down that businesses produce goods. Businesses produce goods that consumers are willing to buy. If we're not willing to buy what a business is making, that business basically has two options. One, it can start producing something that consumers will buy, right? Or they shut their doors and they no longer produce things because they're not going to make any money. So consumer sovereignty simply means that consumers rule and that businesses have to produce goods that consumers are willing and able to buy. Okay? So, the next part of this is we have to figure out how a consumer tells businesses what they want. So how do consumers tell businesses? So let's jot that question down. How do consumers tell businesses what they want. So, I mean, I do a lot of shopping at Walmart. How does Walmart know what I want?
What you buy?
Yeah, but you're right. It's what I buy. But I don't go into Walmart and say, hey, I need 3 of these, 2 of these, 5 of these, 4 of these. You guys have all this. They don't know what it specifically is that I want. They know what people want by how? By what we buy, right? So they keep up with what we buy. And that's not just Walmart. That's Food Line. That's every Target, TJ Maxx, whatever you want to think of, okay? They keep up with what we're buying, and they continuously put those things on their shelves, okay? So, to answer the question, how do consumers tell businesses what they want? It says they do it through their dollar votes. So write down dollar votes. Now, I know that's a weird way of saying it, but dollar votes just simply means what we what?
Buy.
What we buy. So we're not specifically saying, hey, you guys need to produce this so we can buy it. We're telling them what we're going to do by simply buying things. Okay? We're telling them what we do by simply buying it. Okay? So, the biggest part of this, just so you guys understand it, does everybody understand what an incentive and consumer sovereignty mean? An incentive is something that'll change your behavior in a positive or negative way. Obviously, a business is trying to change it in a positive way. I gave you some examples of what a positive incentive would be to consumers, producers, workers, savers, investors, and citizens, and then what consumer sovereignty means. Consumer sovereignty means we rule in our economy, and we let businesses know what we want to buy by what we purchase. Does all that make sense? All right, cool.